Hello and welcome into the latest edition of the Fore-All podcast. I'm Jesse Morrison alongside Max Bechtold. And Max, we have a first-time winner on the LPGA Tour, Yealimi Noh, winning the Founders Cup over the weekend by 4 shots over Jin Young Ko. She's been on tour for a few years now, only 23, but yeah, has been on tour for a few years now, has come up close a few times and wasn't able to get the win. Finally gets the win here at the Founders Cup.
Yeah, I don't like to flex or brag too much, but I've been a big fan of Yealimi Noh and her game for years. Back to even when she was on the Solheim Cup team back in 2021, and she went 2-1, was one of the real like standouts of that team. And you could just see the talent brewing for years. And it was always kind of the question of when would she put it all together? When would her mental game kind of catch up to her just pure golf talent? And it looked like it did this week. And it's a good sign for the rest of the season for her, because this was an incredibly impressive win for Yealimi Noh. Like to beat Jin Young Ko, who was kind of chasing her at times, and at times Yealimi was really pulling away, and like it was really impressive to sit there playing with one of the two greatest players of the generation, Jin Young Ko, and to just kind of pull away and win in this dominant of fashion. Like it's a really good sign, I think, for the rest of the season for Yealimi Noh.
Yeah, she shot a 68 in the first round, came back in the second round, was even better with a 64. Sometimes you see those first 2 days, are a bit of a mirage, and then kind of the usual players take over and end up winning those the over the weekend. But now she stuck with it even better on Saturday with a 63, and then she goes into Sunday and finishes up with a 68. So four really strong rounds for her. And yeah, I mean it's cool to see it. Definitely not on our radar of who is going to win this tournament, even though you said you are a big fan of her. But I think we thought that Nelly Cordo was going to totally win this, and it kind of looked like she was on Saturday. She was rolling there for a minute on Saturday, and then uh, kind of just a funky round where she had a really good like first half of the round, and then the back half was just not not good for her. So uh which is a bummer because you know it felt like the Nelly Corda event down there in her hometown. Like it seemed like the entire crowd was following her.
Yeah, they were, and like you said, like there's nothing more to it, I think, than it kind of felt strange and weird. Like she wasn't doing anything perfectly. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you think of Nelly Corda like pulling away and winning events, you think of her just hitting perfect approach shots, or hey, her putter got really hot. Like this event, she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was still playing really well. It's just she wasn't getting that momentum in any facet of her game. When you really look at, she hit 58 greens in regulation out of 72. I mean, when you compare that to what Yealimi Noh did with 67 greens in regulation, like, it's hard to overcome that gap. And I think that's what a lot of players saw is, when a player's hitting 67 greens in regulation for a week, it's going to be hard to catch up with them. And even Jin Young Ko, one of the great iron players on tour, who was playing phenomenally, hit 60 greens. Like, you know, hitting fairways, hitting greens, hitting putts. That's what golf comes down to. And Yealimi Noh just hit putts at an insane level. And players like Nelly Corda and Jin Young Ko and Hannah Green and Megan Kang, they just couldn't really keep up with that. And this course, it's not the toughest course in the world. And, it's got big, huge greens. And so if you can get on the playing surface and start getting the putter in your hand, I mean, you're going to be in good shape. And that's what Yealimi Noh saw all week.
Yeah, you mentioned Jin Young Ko though, so I want to touch on her for a little bit. Just what you see out of her. I mean, a pretty solid finish for her. Second, 17 under, took home three or gained 320 points. So yeah, I mean it was a good tournament for her, but didn't win. But just what'd you see from her?
Jin Young Ko is fully back, and that's not a surprise. Like, we all knew that last year was kind of goofy with her. She got off to a slow start, didn't play in a lot of the early events. And then once she did, it was kind of a mixed bag. She had some really, really positive results, had some just kind of middling ones. What we're seeing right now is one of the best players, like we just said, of her generation. Has 15 career wins, two majors. We're seeing her get back right into form. She's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last few years. It feels like she's healthy now. And we're seeing that. She's finished tied for fourth and second in her two events this year so far. She's hitting fairways, she's hitting greens, she's hitting putts. Like we just said, that is a recipe for success. That is the recipe that Jin Young Ko has lived on in her career, is just being a solid, consistent ball striker who can make timely putts. And so far, we're seeing that right now. Let's see how it goes when she plays the full schedule, because obviously we've seen injuries, we've seen stamina sometimes come back to bite her, but right now, off to a phenomenal start.
Yeah, and she obviously hasn't won since May of 2023 at the Founders Cup. Um, which was minus 13. She won with 13 under back then, which is like major score win, which is
Yeah.
I know it's a different course and everything, but that's pretty low score to win, a non-major tournament with. But anyway, that's a tangent. But yeah, I think it'll definitely she'll take that next step in her confidence if she wins, because we're going on 2 years now without her winning a tournament.
And,
So I
and,
think the win has to come soon, and I think she's on track for that.
I love what you just said about confidence, because I feel like the LPGA is just all about confidence. Like, it's built on that. When we talk about players like Lauren Coughlin, just got confidence last year and her game, just flourished with it. Alim Kim has gotten that confidence and now she's winning golf events. Yealimi Noh was like kind of seen as a very passive, not confident player in her career. And then we saw her last week. She just looked in control. And so Jin Young Ko just, if she has that confidence in her, I think she can go on to have a phenomenal season this year. If she gets that confidence brewing and going, and she feels like she's the best player on tour, which she should. Like, she's one of the greats of all time on the LPGA tour. So I think this is a really, really good sign for her moving forward, especially moving on to the Asian swing now, where she'll get some more hometown friendly crowds. I think this is a really good opportunity for Jin Young Ko.
And just to kind of tie a bow on the Founders Cup, a lot of familiar faces in the top 10. Megan Kang finished third. Hannah Green tied fourth. Mayu Yamashita tied fourth. Nelly Corda, I mean, she didn't have, as we said, didn't have the best performance, but she still finished tied seventh.
Mhm.
With Celine Boutier was also tied seventh. Angel Yin at 10th. So, pretty star-studded leaderboard there, which is what you want. Was there anything that disappointed you about the tournament, or surprised you in a good or bad way?
Well, I mean, I don't mean to pick on her because she recovered well after her first round. But I really thought Lydia Ko was going to have a better tournament this week. And of course, she did play better as it went on. She started with 74, finished with 68, 70, 71. But, this was a course she played really well on last year. She played well last week. I was expecting her to kind of continue that momentum on a course she felt comfortable on. And, I expected a little bit more out of Lydia Ko. It's hard to say too much about it because we're still only in the second week of the season. There's a long year left to go. But Lydia Ko, I thought was going to have a little bit of a better week than she had.
Uh, Shout out before we move on. Shout out Lexi Thompson for being retired for one tournament and
She played great though. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, and coming back for nine under, finishing
what an
tied
event.
13th. I know that she's not going to play that much, but
Yeah, but
it is funny to see her out there playing
I,
super well as a quote unquote retired player.
and just while we're at it here, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to a player we haven't, I don't think, ever said the name of on this podcast, Paula Rito, who I was at the tournament. I was on the fourth hole on the first day. Paula Rito was already one over, and she hit two horrendous shots in a row. Like, and it looked like her tournament was over. And she was at two over early in the event, really rallied to finish tied for 19th, the top 20 finish, shot 67-67 in her second and third rounds. I just want to give a little shout out to her because I literally have a text message up where I texted somebody, Paula Rito is collapsing already in this event. And she came back and played really well. So I want to give a shout out to her for like not giving in because she was hitting some shots that were like really not good that she recovered from very, very well.
Uh, One more thing, just since you were there, uh, what was it like being there? What was it a well done tournament? I mean, I remember covering the Founders Cup when it didn't actually end up happening, but it seemed like it was going to be a well run tournament. Just kind of what were the vibes out there in Florida?
It was strong. I mean, we can get into this more, but I came down with a pretty big sickness during the event. So I was kind of battling my own immune system there. But when I was at the course, when I was able to be at the course, um, I love this golf course for covering, and I'm sure the players love it for playing. Because sometimes when you get there, I've been at tournaments in Arizona, I've been in tournaments in California. I've been to a few in Florida last year at the CME at Tiburon. I love the layout of this course. It makes it very easy for spectators. There's places where there's four or five holes within like 100 yards of each other, which I just think is the ideal way to watch golf in person, is to be able to just go from hole to hole to hole and see different groups and to see different players and to catch up with the big featured groups. So I love this golf course for both covering and observing golf. And I think the tournament was very well put on. And there was some nice crowds out there. Obviously, the big talking point was Nelly Corda. When you were on the shuttle buses, when you were in the parking lots, when you were in the lines to get into the tournament, all the discussion was about Nelly Corda, and indeed the galleries were all in support of Nelly Corda. I would say 95% of the people on property were following her around, and that was cool to see. It's cool to see the biggest star on tour get a really big crowd in her hometown. So yeah, no, I thought the event was great.
You should redo that Sports Center commercial with Tiger Woods in the gallery, but with
That's
Nelly Corda.
that's what it looked like. I mean, the only thing busier than the gallery on Nelly Corda was the traffic in Bradenton, because Bradenton has the craziest traffic of any American city I've been in. That includes LA, New York, wherever. Bradenton, got to get those streets figured out, got to get that traffic figured out.
Well, it is Florida, so you can't expect much. Uh, anyway, pace of play. They played a little faster this weekend, and they've set some new rules. Let's tell everyone about these new pace of play rules, Max. For those of you who aren't familiar with them.
Yeah, it's been an interesting start to the year on pace of play. Obviously, that was like the big talking point coming into the season, was pace of play after the end of last year, where Nelly Korda, Charlie Hull really kind of called out the LPGA, and the LPGA has been the first golf league to actually respond to this. It's been a big talking point in the PGA Tour as well, but the LPGA has really gone out and tried to do something about it. Now, in the first week of the season, they played too fast because they didn't fill out their coverage window. It finished about 35 minutes before their coverage window ended, which is never a good thing because you'd like to get as much golf as possible in that. But still, and then this last week, they were playing in like 3 hours and 20 minutes, which I know they're in two sums for the final two rounds, but still, like, that's pretty quick. But anyway, they've really gone harder into the stroke penalties instead of fines. So, you get that certain amount of time to hit the ball. If you go 1 to 5 seconds over, you get a fine. That was in place before, that's in place now. Now, 6 to 15 seconds over time, you get one stroke penalty. 16 plus seconds over time, you get a two-stroke penalty. And this could be a huge deal. I mean, if it's a tight tournament and it's down the stretch, a two-stroke penalty is obviously huge. So in addition to that, first players to hit tee shots on par fours and par fives used to have an additional 10 seconds to hit. That is no longer the case, except on drivable par fours. So on short par fours, you still get that 10 seconds to hit your tee shot. But on most par fours and all par fives, that is no longer the case. First set on par threes and approach shots and putts will still get those extra 10 seconds. 22 players received a fine for slow play in 2024. Under the new rules, 23 players would have received at least a one-stroke penalty. So you're already seeing that difference of what would have happened. And it will be interesting, we don't name names. Some of these slower players on the LPGA Tour have not played yet this season. I do think they'll be in contention in Arizona when these rules start to go in effect. It will be interesting to see if there's a faster pace when they pick back up in the United States.
I think that this is good. Number one. Uh, I think that I'm just kind of the opinion that like you don't need to take that long. I think it gets into the territory of overthinking things when you're going super long. I think it's probably helpful to the golfer. Just go up there and hit the ball. Like you're not sitting there, you're not tossing the grass in front of you and all that nonsense that happens. And it's like it's you just need to go up there and hit the ball. And I think most professional golfers who do that are gonna have success because they're really good at this. And so yeah, I mean I honestly like I think, playing like 3.5 hours is pretty should be pretty standard.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard.
And I think it's interesting. And Keith Mitchell, PGA Tour player, this week was interviewed at the Waste Management Phoenix Open about it. And I actually thought he brought up a really interesting point, which is in the first two rounds, especially, but sometimes depending on the tournament, depending on the pace, depending on what time you need to get done, sometimes you're off split tees. And so there are people teeing off on 1 and 10. And what he brought up is basically you can't play in less than 5 hours, or else you're going to catch up to the group who teed off on the other nine, which I thought was an interesting thing. But then when you look at what Nelly said this week, Nelly Korda, about it, her response to it, when somebody asked in the press conference about the new pace of play rules being put into effect, she said, finally, yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think that's one of the things that I've noticed over my time on tour is that we used to go from 5 hours, under 5 hours, to now it's just 5.5 typically our rounds. So I think that implementing harsher rules is going to be good for the game of golf. And my thing is when they're in groups of three, I don't think you can expect too little. The issue that the LPGA has been running into, and the PGA Tour to an extent also, is these rounds aren't 5 hours. They're like pushing six sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you want to get rid of is you can't expect every week the groups to be playing in 3.5 hours, but you got to make sure that they aren't playing in really crazy amounts of time that are unusual for the game of golf. And I think that's what these rules are going to help out.
I have watched golf tournaments before where like I have started watching them. I watch 3 holes, I leave, I go run my errands for the day. I'm taking hours to do that. I come back and the leaders are on 16.
Yeah.
And like I feel like I haven't really missed that much because I'm still gonna see the finish. So it's like very I think
Every
that
every tournament needs to be played with the urgency of the Waste Management Phoenix Open, where all the broadcasters and players and spectators are all aware we have to finish in time for the Super Bowl. I feel like that's what every tournament needs to be played with.
last year they didn't at the Phoenix Open because of all
But
the
it was
weather.
because of weather. But
Yeah,
when there isn't the weather, they know they have to play fast. And
yeah.
there is a little bit of a difference that you see in that event. I always think so.
Uh that was boring this year.
Yeah.
I think that I'm gonna make this point here quickly as before we move on to something that involves men's golfers but also doesn't. Uh PGA Tour has like minimal star power right now, and I don't know who these people are, um, which is not great. So watch the LPGA Tour where I can like actually go through the leaderboard and be like, oh, I know her.
Stars play on the LPGA Tour on a consistent basis. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like the PGA Tour sometimes where like every 6 weeks a star plays. The
Yep.
LPGA Tour stars play.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to have your biggest stars playing, and also not on another tour that sucks. So uh or maybe
I
the
don't disagree. I agree.
or playing a golf simulation, basically playing Top Golf. That's where some of the biggest stars are on the PGA Tour these days, playing Top Golf.
No,
But
no
anyway,
disagree.
I digress. Uh Minjee Lee is going to be featured on Full Swing. So some LPGA love on Full Swing this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time an LPGA player will be heavily featured on Full Swing. We don't really know what that means. She could have 2 interviews and that's it featured. But from everything we've heard, she will be a somewhat major portion of her brother Minwoo Lee's episode of Full Swing. Now, what the PGA Tour has said is this will heavily feature their journey to the Olympics because they were both in the Olympics representing their home country of Australia. It seems like that's what it will be. Minjee Lee was asked about this in her press conference over the week. She said that they came a few times to her tournaments. They came once when Minwoo Lee was following her. They came once when Minjee was following Minwoo. So apparently the cameras were around them, 5 or 6 times is what it sounded like to me. So it seems like we should have some good features on Minjee Lee. And Minjee and Minwoo Lee are two of the most, positive, fun, high energy players on their respective tours. So I think these should be really good episodes. This isn't the first time we've seen women's golf stars on Full Swing. Rachel Keane was featured heavily in the Alex Fitzpatrick episode in season 2. She's one of the great college players of the last 10 years. So it was great to see her on those episodes. But this is the first time that a big time professional golfer will be featured on this series. And I mean, I'm not even a huge PGA Tour fan, but I love Full Swing. And so it should be very, very exciting to see Minjee heavily featured on these episodes because she's a great person, really positive attitude, really fun personality. I think she'll be a great representative for the LPGA Tour.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to tune back into Full Swing. Ian Poulter turned me off. Couldn't take
That's
that
like
guy
the second
anymore.
episode of the first
Yeah,
season.
I know, and I was like, enough of this, and so I changed it. Speaking of unlikable PGA players, Ian Poulter, that guy.
Well, he's not a PGA player anymore.
Well, yeah, unlikable Liv has been.
Oh,
Anyway, Max, what is on the website that people need to check out? That is forall.com, FORE-ALL.com.
yeah, brand new fashion article up, so go check that out. We're in kind of a break this year or this week. No tournament this weekend. So kind of catching up, kind of taking a look at some of the statistics, taking a look at why some of the players have been so successful, what parts of their game have been thriving. Those things will all be up on the site. Once again, go take a look at the newsletter. This is a totally free newsletter. I swear it's not an annoying one. It's once a week. You'll get some exclusive content. That's where I do a lot of my editorial articles. Get to give my opinions. This week, I gave my opinions on the pace of play rules. Gave my opinions on Yealimi Noh. Like this is a little bit of a bonus on the site, so go check all that stuff out. And yeah, then the next week we'll be going into previews for the Asian tour or the Asian swing part of the tour. So go check all that out.
And we will also be talking about the Asian swing next week on this podcast. And that will do it for this episode for Jesse Morrison or for Max Bechtold. I'm Jesse Morrison. We will talk to you guys next week.